Hi, Bhante. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Bhante. It's Anne.
Hi, Ann.
How much snow do you have on the ground?
Well, it's melted now, most of it. We had nearly 5 to 6 inches, you know, when it snowed. But the temperature's warming up. So.
We are getting 5 to 10 millimeters of freezing rain tonight, Bhante.
What?
5 to 10 millimeters of freezing rain.
Forecast.
The forecast overnight
Uh,
Where you are in Ottawa?
in Ottawa.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be 60 plus degrees here tomorrow, I think.
Wow.
It will be +1 or +2, right? +2.
I think Thursday or Friday it may reach 70 degrees.
Ah, nice.
Just for a day or so, and then it start getting cold again.
Yeah. Tomorrow will be a
Mark, you must have had a lot of snow up there in Michigan, right?
It's starting to melt here too. We had knee deep for a while. Now it's settling down.
Oh, yeah. Is your mom home now, or?
No, she's gonna stay there for a while.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah,
You're taking care of the house.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah, she likes it there. She gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, friends, we'll go ahead and start now with reciting the Namo Tassa and the three refuges. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Welcome, friends, to this evening's Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So this week we're continuing to go over the Mahanidana Sutta, or the Great Discourse on Causation. I hope that most of you were here last week when we started our study of this the sutta, and that you had a chance to read and reread this sutta, because there's a lot in it, and a lot of maybe unfamiliar concepts that take some reflecting on. So last week we went through the first section of that. And, this is basically the Paticca Samuppada, but just going over 10 of the 12 links, as we already discussed last week. This sutta starts out with the Buddha telling Ananda about starting out with the question of what is the nature of old age, suffering, and death, and being birth, and then what is the condition for birth and becoming, and going in it in the reversed order, kind of from the traditional explanation of the forward sequence of dependent origination. So the important part of this sutta down towards the end was about the connection between consciousness and name and form. And this is probably one of the more difficult aspects of the sutta to understand. And so that, the cause of consciousness comes from name and form, and name and form is dependent on consciousness. So they're mutually dependent on each other. Of course, we say contact is the anyway, now the last paragraph is from birth as a requisite condition, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair come into play. Now, I want to go over tonight this next sections on this from aging and death to the let's see, get this.
Is this any page?
No. So many pages here. Okay. From birth is the condition for aging and death. And the Buddha, I'm going to read this section. And this is the way to understand how birth is a condition for aging and death. If there wasn't any birth at all in any way, of anything, anywhere, of devas and celestial beings, human beings, spirits, demons in the heavens or hells, animals, birds, snakes, if there wasn't any birth, then there wouldn't be any aging and death. From the cessation of birth would be there would be no aging and death discerned. And so this is actually the Buddha's wonderful sort of deductive reasoning. This shows the brilliance of the Buddha's, how he really reflected on this paticca samuppada. It wasn't just some, spurious thing that just popped into his mind. he reflected on it in a lot of different ways, the way that most people do not. And then he said, what is the cause of birth? The cause of birth is becoming. And this is the way to understand how becoming is a condition for birth. If there were no becoming at all in any way, anywhere, would birth be discerned? And the monk said, no. Now, you have to define becoming, the word bhava. And there's three kinds of becoming defined by the Buddha. Sensual becoming, that means birth in the realms where there's senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Then there's fine material becoming and immaterial becoming. Now this is more difficult to understand because it's becoming means where the kind of being. We learned last week that the word is bhava is sometimes translated as becoming, sometimes as being. And that means the state of existence. And the karma that we create. Becoming is the karma we create to be born as a human being. So we become as a human being. Or the karma we create to be born as an animal. The karma we create to be born as a deva. The karma we create to be born in the Brahma realms, which requires attaining the jhanas and so on. So if it wasn't for this becoming, then there would be no birth. And, science would just say birth is caused because of the mother and the father coming together and having fun and producing a baby. That's Western scientific understanding of birth. But see, the Buddha is going a lot deeper into it than just the superficial, understanding. So again, this is just an example of the brilliance of the Buddha's mind in really penetrating these causes of our, existence. But basically, the becoming, again, is the karma that we create. And then from clinging as a condition becomes becoming. So what is the cause of becoming? It's clinging. And the clinging, he describes 4 types of clinging. Clinging to sensuality, clinging to precepts and practices, or rites and rituals, clinging to views, and clinging to the doctrines of the self. So we cling to these things as being I, me, or mine. So sensual pleasures, that means our attachments to things. And then getting attached to various, habits and rites and rituals. You're clinging to views in terms of, clinging to the view of God, clinging to the view of self or no self, or various types of views, especially about religious views, but it could be also other views, like view of, communist viewpoint, a capitalist viewpoint, the various economic doctrines and philosophical doctrines clinging to that. So this is what causes us to create the karma. Because of our clinging, attachment and aversion to these various views, all of the karma that we create predominantly is caused by this clinging. So clinging is the cause of becoming. Becoming is the cause of birth. Then what is the cause of clinging?
Craving.
And that is craving. And that means craving for any of the feelings and the contact. So craving to see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or even the craving to think. It gives rise to the clinging, because so craving is the initial desire for things, and clinging to that is is grasping those ideas of what one wants or what one believes is right or wrong or good or bad, that clinging, the craving is the initial desires, but clinging is clinging to that until we actually perform the karmic actions. And then what is the cause of clinging or craving? Is feeling is the cause of the craving. And I'm not going to go all this, but actually I wanted to actually read this part on craving. So feeling is the condition for craving arise, and contact is the condition for feeling arise. So now this is an example of the analysis, the way the Buddha analyzed this, because yes, people, what is the cause of craving? And they just say desire. Yeah, but what causes it? And so this is a great thorough explanation. It says seeking is dependent on craving. Acquisition is dependent on seeking. Ascertainment is dependent on acquisition. Now, some of these words, some of you who don't know English that well, you might not understand some of these words. This is Tani Saro's translation of the sutra. He tends to use these words that are not that common in usage. But and desire and passion is dependent on ascertainment. Attachment is dependent on desire and passion. Possessiveness is dependent on attachment. Stinginess is dependent on possessiveness. Defensiveness is dependent on stinginess. And because of defensiveness, various evil, unskilled phenomena come into play. The taking up of sticks and knives, conflicts, quarrels, disputes, accusations, divisive speech, and lies. And so this is the way to understand how it is that because of defensiveness, all these unskillful actions lead to the taking up of sticks, knives, weapons, quarrels, disputes. And if there were no defensiveness at all in any way or anything, anywhere, in the utter absence of defensiveness, from the cessation of defensiveness, and that means all of the aforementioned things of attachment and desire, defending your beliefs and defending why you need to have this and that, or why you don't like this and that. That's all included with sort of defending oneself, right? Whether it's defending your body, so you kill somebody that's trying to attack you, or you're defending your religion, so many things. And that's what causes people to, again, do all these, unskillful actions. And so if it wasn't for defensiveness, none of those evil actions would come into play. And so the rest of it, the feeling, the contact is the source of feeling. Feeling is the source of, again, the craving, which leads to all those things we were just mentioning. And then it comes down to name and form is a requisite for contact. And this is the way to understand how from name and form condition comes contact. If the qualities, traits, themes, and indicators by which there is a description of the name, group, mental activity were absent, with designation, contact, be discerned. And so that, again, that's a little bit difficult to understand, but name and form basically is, the activity of our mind and all the ways in which we identify objects and identify ourselves in relationship to those objects, or that mental, in the mind, it also even creates the sense of ourself, because the sense of I and me is part of the mental activity that's, remembering the past and the future of these objects that we're coming into contact with. It's quite complicated, but that's why you can only understand it through observing your mind and how it's actually working in a deep state of mindfulness and concentration. So we've already touched on this part of this last week too. The name and form and consciousness. So the name and form gives rise to the contact, and the name and form also gives rise to the consciousness, but the consciousness also gives rise to name and form. So it's something like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did consciousness comes first, or name and form comes first? And I think I mentioned this last week, that it's the consciousness that, comes from a past life that creates the new body, say in the mother's womb, and then creates this name and form, or the body and mind of a new being. But then the consciousness is dependent on that name and form for its sort of vehicle. In other words, consciousness needs a vehicle, some kind of name and form through which to operate, at least, let's say, as a human being or as an animal, things we can kind of relate to. And we also talked about last week how if the consciousness were not to descend into the mother's womb, would name and form take shape in the womb. And so that's why the name and form is dependent on that consciousness. But then for the consciousness to continue, it needs that name and form. Because if something happens, a miscarriage occurs when the name and form, dies. Either the consciousness leaves that name and form, the new little fetus in the mother's womb. If the consciousness cannot be sustained in it for whatever reason, it will die and a miscarriage will occur. Or for some other reason, if the name and form dies within the womb, the consciousness can't stay there, it will exit and the death will occur. So that's how that mutual dependence of name and form is very important, links in this process of birth and death. I know this is, probably confusing for a lot of you out there. And there's a question that somebody had we're going to get to. And then at the end, after going down this far in the sutta, then the Buddha goes into the delineations of a self. Now, I'm not going to go into all this because it's really very, very, intricate and very confusing, the different ways that the self is, because the self is basically just a concept within our mind that we're being created, and it exists on the way we relate to our experiences. But I'm not going to go into all that because really it's it can be more confusing than it will actually shed light on anything that's really pertinent. Now, so I want to begin to open this up to some questions. I see there's a hand there, but I'm going to read a question that was sent in to me by email from somebody. And it's talking about, in this sutta, it discusses the delineations and assumptions of a self, how we assume there to be some self. Whether it's in our body, we regard our feelings, body as self, the physical body as self, our feelings as myself, and so on. And that, the feeling of an I is just an illusion created within the mind. So this person can understand this intellectually, but they struggle with the concept of the rebirth, because this idea of a self is usually related to the idea of a soul. So people use the word soul a lot, right? And usually a lot of people don't even know what it is. They just say their soul, or who's going to go to heaven or hell, or whatever they might believe in it. But usually it usually means that the person has their sense of I. Or me, I, me, and mine is the way that the mind relates to anything in connection with it. And so, if there's no soul being, what is reborn if there's no soul? And I've talked about this quite a lot in the past as well. And basically, it's just the karmic formations that are reborn, because when the mind dies, along with ignorance and the sense of self that was really the fuel, when you die, it's that sense of, and all the habit formations, the becoming, the sankharas that have been, generated our whole lifetime. This is the fuel that causes the rebirth. This is like a magnetized energy. And so that is what, leaves the body at the time of death and takes up residence in another form. It creates another, attracted to another name and form. I've it's a very difficult, one of the hardest difficult concepts or ideas for people to understand. But an analogy that I give is, let's say you have a light bulb in your house, and then the light bulb breaks. So now you have to go and you have to get another light bulb. But if you stick your finger in the socket, you might get shocked, right? If the electricity is still going in there, you might get shocked. So it's the electricity that causes that light bulb to glow. And so the electricity is sort of the accumulated karmic formations and the ignorance. And this body can no longer support that. So this body is like breaking, the light bulb breaks. But that energy is still there, and it needs to get plugged into a new body. Now I know again that people are going to argue, and they're skeptics, and there's so many things about it. But anyway, that's probably the easiest way to kind of understand that. Just because a light bulb breaks, it doesn't mean there's no electricity still going through that current. And so that current goes out into the universe and somehow finds another light bulb or a fetus or whatever, a deva body, or creates something because it needs that light bulb, the light for the consciousness. Anyway, so I know that's maybe not a perfect description of the process, but this probably isn't any perfect way that's going to satisfy most people. Okay, so now there's a couple of hands that have shown up on the screen. And I think, Suzanne, you're the first one who had a hand come up. So what is your question, Suzanne?
Bhante, whenever there's severe congenital abnormalities in the fetus, but there's not a miscarriage, and then the baby is born and then lives a life of horrific challenges because of the congenital abnormalities. Can you say a word about that?
Okay, I'm going to try to repeat the question if I heard it properly. So let's say the new baby that's forming in the womb, if there's not a miscarriage, but the baby is born, but it's born with some congenital defects, problems. So there's so many infinite types of problems that happen. That is due to the karma. So the baby is being born and it's alive, but it could be, so many kind of problems. And that would be connected with the karma, either the karma of the mother or the family, or the karma of the being that's coming to seek the birth, and the things that would affect that person in the lifetime. Now, there's different suttas of the Buddha, like the Kama Vibhanga Sutta and so on, that describe how the mind is reborn because of previous actions. And that's a very controversial subject. People thinking the baby is just an innocent, pure thing that came, has got the problems. But, it's very complicated. But generally, from the Buddhist point of view, those problems are either the karma of the parents and the baby are very intimately connected. And the mind that's seeking rebirth is attracted kind of like a magnetic pull to parents or a situation in which is going to allow it to reap the effects of its previous karma from a previous life. Now, people don't like to hear that, but that's the way that we would, it's usually described in terms of, how a baby is born. It could be born and be healthy most of its life and live a long life and then die from natural old age. Or it could, its lifetime from childhood could be very painful, again, with chronic sicknesses, and then the parents, if they have the karma, to have to spend their life caring for a disabled or a, child like that, then that's going to be the karma of the parents too. So there's a lot involved. There's not a simple thing.
Okay.
But that's
Thanks.
the way that usually it would be described from the Buddhist point of view.
Thanks, Bhante. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Let's see, Michael, you have a question, Michael?
Yes, Bhante. I liked the way you explained it earlier. You said consciousness resides in a name and form. That's why a name and form is created. And without name and form, a consciousness can have a material existence. That's the dual dependency. And you also mentioned there's material existence, there's fine material existence, and there's immaterial existence. So for material existence, which we are, that codependency exists. So I love the way you explained it. I just wanted to comment on that.
That's where the Buddha explained it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bhante.
Okay. Now, there's our cases, those immaterial realms, they don't need a name and form as such to exist in material forms, but in the material realms. But that's so rare that, I don't think any of us have to worry about being reborn in immaterial realms. So, but we're talking basically, this description is, referring to things that we can actually experience. That means human beings and animals. We all know that they undergo this birth and death. They're born in a womb and they come out in various types. So, that's what this is primarily focused on, understanding that.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, Kevin, you have a question, Kevin?
Yeah, Bhante, can you hear me?
Yes, if you can speak a little louder, that might help.
Okay, I got a little bit of laryngitis. It's good to see you. The last time I saw you was back in '98 in Chesapeake, Virginia, at the Vietnamese Center when you came to give a day-long retreat.
Oh, well, that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I got one
A
question.
lot of momentary bursts and deaths
Yes.
under the bridge.
My question is one question twofold. But it's one question. How would you dispute or address the criticism that Buddhist Nibbana is nihilistic? And along with that, what's the difference between Nibbana and the materialistic view or the materialist view?
Well, that's a very deep sort of question, and but the nihilism, people that talk about nihilism, they're thinking that there's some entity that's going to be destroyed. And according to the Buddha, there is no permanent self that's annihilated, because that there is no permanent self. It's an illusion of a self. And it's just seen through. And actually, the Buddha was asked was accused of being an annihilationist. There's a sutta. Can't explain, give you the exact quote, but you can find it. But the Buddha said, in one way, I'm a nihilist. That I prescribe the annihilation of greed, hatred, and delusion. So in that sense, the Buddha is a nihilist. He annihilates greed, hatred, and delusion. And that is the definition of Nibbana, is the ending, or the ending, the overcoming, the annihilating of greed, hatred, and delusion. And so that's the way it should be interpreted. Not the idea of annihilating a self, because there wasn't any permanent entity called a self that existed in the first place. There was only a temporary illusion of a self that's passed on. And so, people who are, clinging to this idea of a self and all that, then they're the ones that have difficulty in understanding this teaching. But, the Buddha lived for 45 years in the state of Nibbana. But it's called the Nibbana with the 5 aggregates still remaining. So the Buddha had already annihilated the sense of self, was annihilated in the Buddha. But yet he could walk around thousands of miles across North India, preaching, talking to people. But his mind was not creating any karma, and it wasn't perpetuating the illusion of a self. So the Buddha had already died, actually. That's why, when we describe we don't say, usually we don't say the Buddha died. He attained parinibbana, that means complete nibbana. Because people think death is, that the Buddha was the body. The Buddha was not the body. And he wasn't even a conditioned mind. So, the Buddha was the body, but that's not his self. That was only a vehicle that the mind was using to gain liberation. Anyway, again, these are difficult things to understand. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yes, yes, pretty much. Uh, the
So if people ask you that, just say that Buddhism doesn't teach annihilation of a self, it teaches annihilation of greed, hatred, and delusion.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Bhante, can I ask a quick question?
Okay.
When we say consciousness, do we mean the sense of self?
Generally speaking, yes, because that's what normally people, if you're not conscious, you don't have a sense of self. When you're sleeping, you don't have a sense of self because you're not fully conscious, but it's still within the unconscious mind, the things that give rise to the sense of self. When you wake up, the sense of self is going to be there again. And so if that sense of self is still in the mind when a person dies, it's going to then regenerate itself again in another existence.
Okay, thanks,
So the
Bhante.
sense of self and consciousness, yes, usually they're kind of identical.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, friends. What?
On the chart.
Is there any chats? Which sutta describes this karma carried over from previous lives? The Maha Kama Vibhanga Sutta and the Chula Kama Vibhanga Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. You'll have to just Google those. And talks about the kinds of karma that gets a person, born in another existence. And there's a lot
Bhante,
of different suttas.
there's an interesting question in the chat, if you could please answer that.
Yeah, I'm reading this chat question.
Okay, okay.
And there's one more. There's people with dementia or Alzheimer's forget the past and not worried about the future. They always live in the present. Well, it's very difficult to know because I don't have Alzheimer's, so I can't talk about it, at least not yet. But and I don't think there's been any, research about whether I doubt if they're totally in the present. They're, it's hard to say that these questions cannot always be answered easily. So, those questions, it's difficult to answer them. Okay. So, friends, then we'll go ahead and finish this discussion tonight. Take a short break in a few minutes and then come back to have our some yoga stretches and then our meditation practice. Okay? We'll see you back in a few minutes.
Sadhu, Bhante.
Bhante, no sound.
The whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. And now we're going to combine this breathing with these movements. So on the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, straighten the arms, stretch your head back. Look up at the back of your hand, stretch upwards. And the out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of your head. Again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms. Stretch the head back, bend backwards a little bit. Feel the arch in the spine. Out breath, touch the top of your head. Third time, hold the upward stretch longer. Bend back a little more. Feel the sensation. Release the fingers and the out breath. Arms back to the sides. Gently close your eyes. Feel the outline of the body. Feel the increased sensations in your hands and fingers. Feel the clothing touching the skin, shoulders, arms, and chest. Just mentally remember the present moment of standing, letting go of your thoughts. Keep the mind centered in the body, feeling the sensation. On the next in-breath, lift up on the toes while raising the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other. Stretch up. Out breath, come back down. Use the in-breath to help lift up the body. Stretch. Out. Once more, in. Stretch. Out. Close the eyes, keep feeling the body, or give the mind time to wander in thought. Body's always right here, right now. It's beneath your nose. Feel the activated life force vibration sensation, material form, contacts between the cells, rise to sensations, feelings, vibrations. They're all basically the same thing, vibrations, feelings, sensations, different intensity. Remember standing, standing. Repeating the word standing in your mind, help to keep the mind centered. Okay, next we'll do the side bendings. On the in-breath, raise both arms up. And keep your fingers and arms straight, close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side as far as you comfortably can. Keep the arms and hands parallel to each other. In-breath up. Out-breath, lift. Keep alternating sides, out breath. Once more to each side. The out breath, lower both arms. Let's close the eyes. Feel the outline of the standing body. Feel the head on top, arms at the sides, clothing touching the skin, feet pressing the floor. Really just watching the body standing, looking at a full-length mirror. See the standing body, the sense, just the outline of sensation. Head, arms, feet, clothing. Standing, standing. Next we'll do the squatting or knee bending. On an in-breath, lift up on the toes, raise the arms up front for balance. On the out-breath, bend the knees and lower down into the squatting position. If you can, come all the way down. In-breath, feel the muscles in the legs pushing the body up. Out. In. Out. Let's squat a little longer. In-breath. Out. Close the eyes, feel the increased heartbeat, other sensations. Feel all those contacts, clothing touching the skin, those are the contacts. Those produce sensations, feeling. Pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, irritation. Might have desire or aversion for some of those sensations, feeling, abuse thought. There's consciousness, observing them. You can now spread the legs, feet apart about 3 feet. Wider the better. Hold the arms out at the sides. We'll do twisting from right to left. Breathe in. On the out breath, twist to the right. Keep your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body, then twist to the other side, the next out breath. In breath, front. Just keep alternating sides, breathing out breath. In. Out. In. Once more. Come back to the front, lower the arms, close the eyes, feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the sensations of the legs spread apart, clothing touching the skin of the legs, feel the hands and fingers, pulsations, tingling sensation. Feel the arms hanging from the shoulders, clothing touching the skin, shoulders, chest, arm. Feel the head balanced on top, skin stretched over the face, the eyes and the socket. This body exactly as it is, here and now. The inner movie camera of awareness. Present moment, body-centered awareness. The same feeling baby has in the womb before it comes out, feeling of being surrounded by billions of cells, vibrating. Now, put the hands together at the chest. On the in-breath, raise the hands over the head. On the out-breath, lower the hands to the chest and bend the knees and lower down. Try to keep the back upright. Feel the stretch in the hips and knees. In-breath, back up. Hands over the head. In out-breath. Come down a little more. In. Out. Out breath. Relax. Feel all those contacts, material vibrations, feeling. There were not these feelings, would there be any? There were not those contacts, would there be any feelings arising? If there wasn't this body, would there be any body vibrations arising? Okay, now bring the legs and feet closer together. Standing straight, do the head turning from right to left. In breath, turn the head to the right. Look over your right shoulder. Out breath, turn the head back to the left to look over the left shoulder. In breath, right. Out left. In. Out. On the in breath, let the head stop in the center. Keep feeling the body. Standing. Standing. Now we're going to do just one last exercise, a backward and forward bending. Again, just be careful with the back bends, especially when you lift up from a back bend. You are having internal body shaking, feeling of dizziness. Anyway, so turn the palms outward so the edges of your hands touch together. On an in-breath, raise the hands up level with your eyes. Then begin spreading the arms apart as you let out the breath and bend backwards. Keep your eyes open, look at the ceiling. Not too far the first time. On the in-breath, carefully lift up, keeping the arms out at the sides. And on the out-breath, lower the arms and hands down. Bend downwards, stretch downwards. Try to touch the floor if you can. Keep the legs straight. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs, let the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. And begin standing up. Turn the palms outward again. In the in-breath, lift the hands up. Level with your eyes. Spread the arms apart as you bend back. In-breath, lift up. Again, out-breath, hands bend downward. And stretch down a little more. With the extra stretch in the leg muscles, little bones in the lower spine stretch out more. And begin standing up. Turn the palms outward, in-breath. Outward, out-breath, then back. In-breath, lift up. Once more, the downward stretch. Out-breath. You hold that downward stretch a little longer. You let the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. The spine joins the pelvic girdle, the sacrum bones. Straighten the legs. And carefully stand up on an in-breath and bring your hands together at the chest. The out-breath, hands back to the sides. Close the eyes. Feel all those increased life force sensations. The activated life force due to the breathing and stretching. The muscle tissue and joints, blood being able to permeate to the remote cells, charge them up with life force awareness. Okay, so let's come back to our seats now, get ready for the sitting. Just get comfortable in your sitting posture. Sit up straight. Keep your chin lifted up, level with the floor. Gently close your eyes. Just feel the eyes in the sockets. Feel the eyelids stretched over the eyeballs. Just move the whole head and spine backwards a little bit until you come to that kind of tipping point where it feels like you might tip backwards. And just come forward just a bit. Just mentally feel that straight, alert posture. Try to feel the outline of the sitting body. General sense of the head on top. The arms and hands at the sides. Hands touching together. Try to feel the inward curve of the lower spine. There's this establish the natural inward curve of the lower spine. I hope to keep the body sitting straight. Feel the buttocks pressing the seat. Feel your feet tucked underneath. Feel your feet and toes. Allow the awareness to kind of come back up and rest on the eyes. Feel the eyes in the socket. Just feel that outline of the body, all those different places. Give rise to the feeling of the sitting body. Just remember sitting, sitting. And begin some deep, slow breathing again, like we did in the yoga session. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 seconds. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lungs on the out breath. Feel the next expanding in breath. Take several more deep, slow breaths, cultivating this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. We're going to count the breaths again from 1 to 10, try to develop a more continuous connection with the breathing. I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that with your breathing and concentration. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Hold the breath in for 1 or 2 seconds. With the contracting out breath, also count to 1, feeling the last bit of air go out. Next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5. Out 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. Out 7. In 8. Out 8. In 9. Out 9. In 10. out 10. Now discontinue the counting. Let the breathing return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. Continue to feel it. Keep the attention focused on the expanding and contracting movement, especially to feel the clothing is rubbing against the skin of the stomach, rib cage, or chest. As it expands and contracts. Knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. Tune into the 4 phases of each breath cycle. The expanding in breath and the brief pause. The contracting out breath and the brief pause. Brief pauses between the breaths. Feel the outline of the sitting body. Breathing is occurring within the larger sitting body. This breathing body is the home base for this for consciousness. This consciousness needs the body and mind to experience the world. This body and mind needs the consciousness to continue living. Might reflect on that mutual dependence, name and form with consciousness. The body can no longer hold a consciousness. Death will occur. If the consciousness somehow leaves the body will die. Normally they die together. dependent on this breathing body and consciousness. We experience a contact, the clothing rubbing against the skin is the contact. Producing the feeling. In sitting, out, sitting. Observe that mutual dependence. Breathing body, the consciousness in it. Sensations being produced in the sounds coming through your ears, producing sensation, feeling. You may like the sounds, you may dislike the sound. Those feelings will produce liking or disliking, pleasure or pain. Produce thoughts. Produce the sense of self. See if you can understand that by observing it happening moment by moment, breath by breath. Try to observe how particular sensations or thoughts, desires, aversions create or enhance the sense of I, me, or mine. In the consciousness. Stay alert, awake, breath by breath, moment by moment, contact by contact, feeling by feeling. If there's too many thoughts or the mind is dull, come back and do some deep, slow breathing. Help stay awake, alert in the breathing body. Or if you have lots of thoughts, then just observe those thoughts. They're based on desires, aversions, how craving turns into grasping. Grasping is just excessive thoughts, planning, scheming, how you can accomplish a desire or get away from a painful feeling, how that creates the sense of self becoming. Sense of self exists on dependence of the amount of desire or aversion you have towards any objects or thought. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. So many different contacts, sensations, coming and going. Sounds coming and going. Thoughts, ideas, liking, disliking, coming and going. Thoughts of I, me, or mine, coming and going. Undergoing that process of dependent origination, dependent co-arising, all of that happening through this breathing body with its consciousness. Contact. What sensations or thoughts arise because of that contact? Sound to the ear, producing hearing consciousness, producing thoughts. Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi yesamago visuddhiya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to briefly last and then vanish. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with self-created suffering. And this is the path to freedom. And thus spoke the Buddha. To finish this meditation, I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu. Do the chanting on a long out breath. Feel those vibrations in the body and mind. And take a deep breath. Now place the hands at the edge of your knees and take one more deep, slow breath. As you breathe in, stretch your head back, pull against the hands on the knees to arch your spine backward. Lift the head up on an in-breath. On the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. Lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So brings our evening Dhamma discussion and meditation to an end. I hope you're all able to have some periods of calm, steady awareness, able to perhaps get some insights into some of those things that we were discussing. Mind and body, consciousness, context, triggering off our various thoughts, desires. Okay, so wish you all the best in this coming week. And, can try to practice the M&Ms every hour during the day, bring the mind back to the present moment, get some clarity. Okay, so be well, be safe, be mindful, be wise. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo.
Thank you, Bhante, so much.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Bhante.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bhante.
Yeah.
Thank you.